Hi to everybody. This is Stefano, Mazarin Geopolitics from Italy. We are starting the OpenTable with the people after many weeks. We stopped for 1 month because we were planning all the speeches. So from today and for the next 2 or 3 months, we will start regularly with the OpenTable and the roundtables. With the military analysis of what is happening not only in Ukraine but all over the world. Actually, we have also the crisis in Sudan, South China Sea, whatever, a lot of mess in the world. So if you want to participate to the stream, there is the link in the chat. If you have any type of question, just ask. Today we are starting with me and our affiliate is not 42, so we are waiting also for Charles that I think is from located in China now. So let's see if it's a test for today after many weeks that we were not having the OpenTable. I remember to you that if you have any type of question and you don't want to participate directly and you want to talk with us, you can use the chat or use the comments. I can see it in every platform, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. So let's start with OpenTable. We were talking with is not 42 opening this stream about the actual situation, what is happening, and that the situation it seems like a stalemate. It's not moving from many months. The front line, there is like some advances of the Russian in Bakhmut, but very slow. In the Donbas part in the south, it's not moving the front. The only news that we had this week, it was that the Ukrainians were crossing the Dnipro River in front of Kherson, but only like for reconnaissance. So it was not moving a lot of troops. It was only something like to show up in the channels. So if you want to tell something about your opinion, then we can chat. So
always fascinating how people coming from different sort of media spheres look at this conflict, or it's like we're living in parallel universes. Honestly, I repeated this many times. So it's like when we spoke a little bit prior to the stream, I try to not speak over other people. I don't always good at that, but like just to listen to what other people say. I wanted to. Well, if I allowed my sort of urges to go forward, I would be shouting, no, this is wrong, this is completely different, and so on. You were talking about how there's upcoming Ukrainian offensive, counteroffensive, how Ukraine might cut the land bridge, how they would, how much weapons there is, or how much we don't really know, how many people there are, personnel, and like that's coming from your sort of parallel universe. From my parallel universe, how I see this situation is basically everything for the past 4, maybe 5 months, 4 months. I think since the World Cup. How long has it been since then? 4 months, about, right? Since the World Cup, since the president, she visited the summit visited Saudi Arabia and met with the JCC, Gulf Cooperation Council members, right? Since then, basically, in my parallel universe, well, although I admittedly have been a little bit out of the loop for that period due to personal circumstances, but in my parallel universe, basically nothing radical happened in that period. And the events have taken sort of uh, a somewhat fixed path that we are now witnessing how they come to the events come to their logical conclusion. Uh, in my parallel universe, let's say, Ukraine was always going to lose a war against Russia. Dramatic. In my parallel universe, the um, sort of I don't want to say the word conspiracy, but let's say an agreement existed between Russia and the Gulf nations and China, apparently, to circumvent the dollar. And that agreement uh, became an option uh, more worthy of pursuit, let's say, uh, because of the actions of the United States and the sanctions and the way they were trying to isolate Russia and the way they were exercising their control over the financial system uh, in their benefit, in the most sort of basic mercantile way that went against the interests of the parties that were supposed to be their allies, even. Uh, so, uh, the way I see it, the way I see this situation unfold uh, in my parallel universe, the United States has reached the point, the world has reached the point where uh, we are on track to, first of all, well, I don't know exactly the sequence of events. Okay, I can't predict it specifically, but these events I think are going to happen. The first thing is BRICS is going to be renamed, okay, and simultaneously will be unveiled the new currency, whatever the shape it's going to take. It could be a currency that is like some people say, uh, like a medium currency. So it's not, or a basket currency, or something that you can transfer your local currency into and transfer out of that basket into something else, some other currency. Let's say I don't know exactly how that's going to work. Again, Putin mentioned that also that's going to have something. Well, he didn't exactly say that what it's going to look like, but he during the, what's it called, Valdai conference, the recent one. By the way, if I'm talking too much, feel free to cut me off.
No,
But
no,
during the
talk.
Valdai conference, someone asked him, I think it was from South Africa, gentlemen. He asked him about the situation with the US control over the global financial system. And he talked about the desired qualities of the new system uh, while he was answering that question, or the new currency, perhaps. And among those desired qualities, he mentioned that uh, uh, they would want that currency or that new system to be independent of any one nation's control, which means that basically, if that is true, the idea of a petro yuan is is not going to be realized in the way as some people think that it's going to be the new sort of main global trade currency. It's going to be something else. So that's one thing that's going to happen. Next thing is going to happen is the widening of the rift between European, Western, perhaps specifically European nations, excluding the United Kingdom and the United States, which is something that we're beginning to see. Let's say in case of perhaps Italy and certainly seems to be France. We'll see how it goes. In case of Germany, we'll see how they react, how the evolving, let's say, political establishment of Germany reacts to the fact that the United States have officially destroyed their critical energy infrastructure. They haven't reacted apparently yet to this. I doubt there will be no reaction at all over the coming years, let's say. We'll see. That's another thing. And the advance of the new financial system, if it indeed is going to happen within my quote-unquote, again, parallel universe, will eventually replace dollar as the main global currency of international trade. And that means that I don't know what that means, actually. We'll see. If it results in some kind of backlash, serious backlash for the United States, then perhaps we should be preparing for the United States exiting the global stage and losing the ability to exercise their foreign policy in the way they've been doing it so far. What that looks like, I don't know. So, yeah, I talked too much, sorry. But there's that. That's
You
what
didn't talk too much because I'm preparing some data for the public. So, what I think about what you are telling to us, that it's very interesting because I don't think that it's like a parallel universe, but it's a different narrative of the same things. The main thing is that let's say that the people maybe don't, but I read sources from any countries, so also in Russian language as translated. I have also some sources from Southeast Asia, whatever, everything. I try to read all the sources so I'm not biased by one side. For sure, I live in Europe, and in Italy, so I have my, let's say, backstory, but I'm not closed mindset. And the idea that I have it's the situation about the de-dollarization. It's a big narrative for Russian position, but I don't know if it is for China. I will show you why, because the problem is, for example, I was watching a very interesting YouTube video of The Redacted, that is like an American journalist, very famous, that is like anti-establishment, anti-government in US and whatever. And that sometime have like some good point, but today was telling that from the 3.5 billion, let's say, barrels that was missing from the European market, Russia was already replaced 3 billion of barrel per day in the Eastern market. I will show you the big problem of what is like this diversion, because if you sell this oil to Italy or Germany or Pakistan and Egypt, it's a huge difference. There is an example of how economy works. Venezuela is one of the biggest producer of oil in the world. And the problem is that to diversify your market, if you are under sanction, you can sell in black market. It's not a problem. You can sell it by brokers. The brokers can guarantee the delivery of the oil, but not the payment. So it's a news from the last month that the last year, about 22 billions of dollars of selling of Venezuela got less than 5 billion of payments. So they missed over 17 billion of dollar of oil that was exported but never paid. So it's interesting this data because it's all the data about the barrel that you sell. The problem is the revenue. So if you want to talk a little bit, because I'm putting some slide, so tell me your point, and I will
It's
show
kind
you
of
some data.
I don't know what to say to this, honestly. Um, it's it's pretty substantial. I don't. Sorry, I don't really know how to respond to this.
No,
I
no, no.
thought it would be interesting to know how much of the trade is actually happening through black market, through what's the word, посредник, through middlemen,
Yeah, brokers.
brokers. Yes, uh, but like I don't know where. Why I don't have access to that information. I don't know who does actually, but
Let me, because I have such a kind of this data, but I'm taking it so I can show it to you. But because
sorry, for example, the first thing that came to my mind in regards to the Venezuela point you made is like how much of that money was stolen, uh, like perhaps the 17 billion that, or at least a portion of that 17 billion was simply pocketed by corrupt Venezuelan officials or something like that. So perhaps it was simply
no,
hidden somehow. I don't know.
it's simple. The accountant that is PwC, or you can take everything that you want about let's say international accounting system that make the fiscal budget of the state was certifying the payments. So the problem was that in balance of payments from abroad, from the oil, that had to be 22 billions, they got less than 5. So it was
So there's no way to sort of circumvent it or something like
no,
hide it.
because if you okay, let me show
For
to
example,
you.
if you wanted to, let's say, trade with a party that doesn't want to be sanctioned in turn for trading with you, and you sort of hide the exchange of money for your goods. I don't know if that makes any sense, but perhaps there's
The
some
main
consideration of
problem,
that.
let's say that the main problem that Russia will have now in the oil market is that the two countries that want that are importing more oil from Russia, it's China and India. The main problem is that the big revenue about oil and gas, especially let's say oil from Russia, it's like refined oil. I can tell you an example. In Italy, in southern Italy, there is a big, very big Russian refinery, actual, that was sold after the Russian invasion, but it's owned by Lukoil, but you know, from the people from outside of Russia don't know, but in Italy it was a big refinery, Russian refinery. So the money and the revenue from the final product, it's much higher than to selling the crude oil.
Mm.
China and India want to import not refined crude because they want to refine it China and India. So it's a huge problem for Russia because it decrease a lot the revenue. Let me show. Okay. because I have some graph that it's interesting. Okay, wait a sec. I wanted to check how much was like the quantity that is like, let's say, intended in the black market for the Russian export. Okay, the top 5 importance of Russian fossil fuels at the moment is let's say China, India, Turkey, European Union, and the United Arab States. Europe, because there are still 2 countries that are still importing from Russia. That is, I think, Czech Republic and Hungary. This is because these 2 countries has no sea access. So they were, let's say, allowed to import directly from Russia because they were not able to import from LNG, from natural liquefied gas. So, okay, I have the data so I can show to you. Let me check. So we can discuss about it. Okay. This is public data that the people can see from here. So I try to collect all the information that I have at the moment. So I have some questions later from the public we will show. So G7 government civil servant fall into 3 categories of a small minority of activists who are not impartial. A large group of do what easiest of some brilliant ones. Let's see. The activists who do not keep the faith are not welcome. The activists who have marched along through the institution have a common purpose. HSBC of the aerial land surface of digitalization are nearly complete. UN reform is imminent. Let's see. Okay. For sure, I agree with you that the actual United Nations system is not working because also the Security Council is a system that could not work. Because if you have, let's say, one panel that it's not movable, if you have Russia, China, France, UK, and USA, you have one that have veto. So in this situation, there will never be a Security Council resolution about Ukraine. Let's check this data that is about the federal government revenue, oil and gas in billion of rubles. You can see that from the top that was 2022, it's falling down. This is the revenue, it's not the selling. You can maintain the same quantity of selling, but the revenue is collapsing. And this is official data of the Russian Statistical Center. So this is another interesting thing about the value of the ruble. If there was what you said in advance, some, let's say, symptoms of de-dollarization of the market, or that the system that was made the head of the Bank of Russia, Nibulina, to prevent the collapse of the Russian ruble value, we can see that in July the value of the ruble was about $50. Now it's 82, and it's going up and up. So what does it mean? That the rubles is getting weak and weak. If we can check about the value of the ruble, and you remember it, before the occupation of Crimea, it was below 50 rubles for dollar. It was, if I remember, 44 or 43. What does it mean? In the trade balance, it means a lot, because if you have a weak value, it's very difficult to import stuff. And the Russian economy, it's an export economy, not import, but import for example, very specific technical part. Now there is a huge problem about the sanction about the planes. There is no spare parts for Airbus and Boeing, and it's difficult to guarantee the security of the planes if you don't have spare parts to exchange. Another interesting chart, and we can discuss about it. This is from this week. Official data, Russian government, translated, but it's official data from Russian government. We can see that from the total income of the government, it's about minus 21%. In a normal economy, it's a catastrophe, minus 21%. When the people it's saying, there is no inflation in Russia, no problem, nothing, it's because the inflation, it's also basing about the quantity of, let's say, the request of goods. There is offer, but there is a lot of people that is not buying stuff in Russia at the moment. But we can see it because I see like the official statistical data of Russia. Let's check the biggest data that is important. Oil and gas income. January-March 2022 was 2,974 billions of ruble. The same time in 2023, 1,635 billions of ruble. So it's half, minus 45%. But if we have the same expenses, if we check the expenses, it's plus 34% because the war is expensive. So what I wanted to push in this argument is that also there is some ground result in the war in Ukraine. In short term, if there is not a lot of money that is coming from abroad, it will be economical problematic to maintain the stability if you are degrading the economy in 1 year minus 21%. Let's go to another one. This is like the actual import of cubic meters of gas. We can see that like the first two countries in Europe were Germany and Italy. Why? Much more than UK, Turkey, France, whatever, because Italy and Germany, we said many times, produce 50% of all the sole production of European Union. So 50% of everything that is produced in European Union, it's produced in Italy and Germany. This is why there is a lot of energivore industries that consume a lot of energy, natural gas, and whatever. Another data that is interesting, it's about the European Union import of natural gas by source. You can see that this is why for me it's a nonsense what is happening economically for Russia, that the majority of the import was over 50% was imported by Russia. So the problem is,
and all of those exports are gone right now, right?
Check the value of Gazprom. Gas, it's disaster. Gazprom, it's bankrupt. If you check the oil, you can sell, but gas no, because the problem you don't have a pipe. So the problem of Gazprom is that 90% of the gas pipe were going to Europe. So if we cutted 100%, let's say 95% of the import from Russia, you have these results, that you have oil and gas income minus 45%. So this is official data. So the problem is economically is unsustainable for Russia. For sure, it's problematic also for European Union because the gas price went up, but actually it's going about the maximum value was I think 320. Now it's about 40. So it's not the best price because before the war it was about, let's say, 20. So it's still the double price, but it's not 10 times like it was in September 2022. Why? Because there is a difference of importers from other nation. Let's see.
How, if I may ask a question, I
Yes.
don't know. How does the OPEC production cuts factor into this?
No, but the problem, the OPEC, it's influencing the oil, not the gas.
Yeah, I know. I was.
The oil market
I know.
they don't have, you don't have problem with oil because you can transport oil with ships. So you don't have any problems if you cut the pipelines. You can ship oil everywhere. It takes much more time, but you don't have problem in export. With gas, if you don't have pipeline,
Yeah,
and for example, the problem of Russia is that
it's much more problematic to
look at the map.
liquefy.
If you look at the map, there are only two ports that don't ice in Russia, except the Black Sea. It's Murmansk and Vladivostok.
Yeah.
So if I want to, so it's problematic to export everywhere. By Murmansk, you can go only, let's say, west. Or you have to circumnavigate Russia, all the north. And Siberia, it's well connected to the west part, not to the east. So and it's very long to make the infrastructure to go east. Okay, let's see. If you check like the natural gas revenue from Gazprom worldwide, if they were rising, if you check 2023, it's disaster. The value of Gazprom Europe, it's in bankruptcy. The value of Gazprom Russia, we can check, but it's going down because it's selling, let's say, 80% less than last year. This is like the operating, let's say, alternative for Russia to export to East. But Power of Siberia 2, it's not operative. It will take between 5 and 8 years to be made.
Yeah.
So, and you know, because you are from a problematic part of Russia, let's say that when there is a cutting of budget in Russia,
Yeah.
every time there is problems with ethnic groups. So
Yeah.
like the collapse of the Soviet Union was very connected to the economical problems, not like West win the Cold War bullshit. It was like internal economical problem between the federation. So if you check like the first, the Power of Siberia 2 have to pass. It's very long to go from Yamal to China. And the other alternative that is interesting is in Sakhalin. That Europeans don't know what is it, but it's in the north of Japan, and it's an island that is very interesting for oil reserves. But the project was, if I'm not wrong, made by Japanese company and Shell with a cooperation of Rosneft. I don't remember if Rosneft or Lukoil. That is the next place to go to China, but it's not operative. So they still make the exploration of the field. The only operational export channel is Power of Siberia 2, that I think that have a maximum export quantity of gas of, if I'm not wrong, 20 billion cubic meters per year. Okay, now it's 10. In European Union was importing 155 billion cubic meters.
Ouch.
So, and the problem is that India and China are importing with a big discount, because if not, they are not buying from Russia. This is why I'm saying that to don't find a deal about Ukraine, it's very, let's say, disruptive for the Russian economy, because you are, in my opinion, being dependent from countries that are using the Russian resources, and there are 3 billion people, and Russia 140 million. So it's difficult to manage geopolitically this balance, and all of them with nuclear weapons. So it's not you are dealing with Ukraine with no nuclear weapons. India, China, let's say also Pakistan, all with nuclear weapons. So you cannot say I have 7,000 warheads and China say
No, no,
okay,
no.
also. So I don't care. With another things, let's say, because I wanted to show you, I have 9 slides to show, and then we can talk about it. It's interesting because if you can check this one, it's about the quantity oil products and chemical that was exported to from Russia. What is decreasing a lot? It's like the refined, that it's like the light blue. It's going dramatically down, and it's the material that have more revenue exported. Returning back to the last point, and so this data is updated to March, so it's pretty new. We can see that you see, like China, it's the first importer now from Russia. So coal, a lot of coal, crude oil, and you see that they are not importing refined. The oil products and chemical, that it's like the refined, that it's the green, it's small. Big part, it's like crude oil pipeline and crude oil seaborne, blue and light blue. So the majority of the Chinese and India import, it's crude material with very low revenue for Russian companies. Turkey, it's more refined. You see that there is more green. European Union, it's only these 2 countries that are still importing from Russia, Czech Republic and Hungary, and United Arab Emirates, it's importing mainly only refined materials. So this is the export situation, just to give an image of what is happening. If you have some thought about what we were talking, I'm ready to and open to.
I can always rely on you to sort of extinguish some of my enthusiasm about what's going on. I don't know.
And I repeat for the public, Charles is coming because he was sleeping. So we are waiting you, Charles. So come whenever you want. The data that I posted, it's official Russian data. So it's not like Western narrative of the situation.
Yeah.
So how you can interpret it, it's different. But the problem is that it's pretty clear that the economic situation, it's not good. And what I'm listening about the deindustrialization of Europe, Europe is in disaster. You don't have the gas. The gas fields are full. For sure, the prices went up, but now they dropped like from 300 240, I said to you. The main problem is that what is happening, let me show another things that I show today in the presentation. It's something that is a situation that is like in the south of Cyprus, because it was discovered the biggest gas field in the last, I think, 20 or 30 years, that is between Cyprus, Lebanon, Israel, and Egypt. And the field was discovered by Eni, that is like the Italian Rosneft. And what is happening? Everybody now, it's like, let's say, organizing the agreements to sell it using, let's say, Italy or Greece and whatever as a platform to export to Europe. My prediction is that after the end of the war, I think that Europe will import steel from Russia, maybe through some other operators, that could be Turkey, but directly with a quantity that will be much, much less than before. So, till Charles is coming. Charles is here. Charles, but you need to enter, not only to say hello. So there is a link. Let me put it to you. I know that you
basically I go back to this what I said last, maybe a couple times actually. We have this 1 year to end this conflict, and then changes will be much more dramatic, perhaps, if I factor in what you were saying.
Yes, I think that I was listening a lot of information. I'm listening a lot of sources about military analysis or whatever, but the situation it's much more complex, because what you say to me about the narrative that is from the Russian point of view, it's from the beginning, if you remember, it was like a war to win and 2-4 god, so 2-3 days. So the problem is much more complex, because also in the military doctrine, Ukrainians are not operating anymore in the post-former Soviet Union military doctrine. So it's not anymore Russia against, let's say, one former Soviet Union country, because all the doctrine, now all the weapon is mostly Western produced. So it's much difficult to approach a war with an enemy that you don't know how is operating. And the difference is that the Russian tactics and weapons are very well known. So my personal opinion it's that it depends what the US want to do, because the next year there will be presidential election. So probably I think that they will push to end this situation before the presidential election. Maybe diplomatically, maybe after what will happen in this phantomatic spring counteroffensive that is, in my opinion, too much cold. I'm listening with spring counteroffensive from 4 or 5 months, and nothing is happening. Russian are creating a lot of defenses in the south, but the problem is that if the Ukrainian army will have the access to the long range missiles for HIMARS. And you said before, it will be very difficult for the Russian to have not the control of the Black Sea with Sevastopol. But the Russian fleet actually it's used in Sevastopol not to be operative as a navy, but they are only firing from the ship to fixed targets. So, what could happen if the Ukrainians have the ability to target the Russian navy in Sevastopol? Would be disaster for the Russians. So, the other problems is that Crimea from the north, it's very difficult to attack technically. From a lot of military view. I don't know if you know, but there was also an Italian campaign in Crimea in the war. Charles has arrived. Charles, you overslept. Aye. So, okay, it was not yet Italians. Where
Charles?
yeah.
Hello.
Yes. Oh, hello. Terribly sorry for completely overslept.
No problem. What time is it there?
It's now 4:40 a.m.
4:40. So next time we need to do it earlier because it's impossible for you to. But
Sorry
you are
for
now
waking you up.
you are now in China.
Yes, still here.
Okay. So we were talking about a lot of things, but let's. I was talking about the actual situation of the phantomatic Ukrainian counteroffensive that we are listening from many times. So, but you that you are in China, what are in your knowledge? Listening about this de-dollarization, what is the Chinese, let's say, point of view, or if you are knowing that, for example, today it was the first time that GPS was not, let's say, let me check into you. Okay, I'm showing this Twitter thing. So that today it was from 3 days that there is GPS jamming in Taiwan. So GPS it's not working properly in all Taiwan. So what is like your sensation of what is happening now in China?
For the most part, it's like life in general. Though strangely, I would say, like on the ground, right now it seems more slightly peaceful than last year, because last year there were things like what do you say? Like I think there was some military maneuvers that were more than normal. So yeah, they were even giving notifications all over the mobile phones of certain exercises that were being done and preparation. Like the provinces, I think they were preparing like wartime preparation or something. But now it's gone like sort of quiet, so I do not know what's happening. But on yeah, I'm still not so sure on what's happening on the ground. I don't really interact with the locals, especially this semester recently, because yeah, I've still got some projects done. But but I it's very complex because seems that uh, China still like it's not exactly neutral, but how can I describe it? Like they still hold uh, Ukraine in high regard. So I don't know. Uh, yeah,
So
sorry.
let me try to catch your point, Charles. What I think about China personally is that everybody, like Indians also, are liking to take advantage of this situation. We were
Mhm.
talking before about is not 42 the same the oil and gas import of China and India that are importing only crude instead of refined because the revenue it's more refining this material in China and India, and the Russian it's losing a lot of money about let me show the slide that you didn't see before, but this is like the Russian revenue in from March. You see that it's like collapsing, not the quantity but the revenue. And also here we can see this is official data from Russian Statistical Institute that like the oil and gas income from the fourth trimester of 2023 it's 45% less than the last year. So about China, I think that China is very calm and using a very, let's say, prudent approach because they are very afraid of any type of second level sanction, not first level like in Russia. Because the problem is that Russia, in my opinion, can survive internally of any type of sanction, degrading the economy. But China, no, because China is an exporter of goods, not of materials. So if you stop the export of Chinese goods in Europe or in Western market, that is 60-70% of their revenue, like the state is closing the shop immediately. So this is why probably because the Chinese are, let's say, having a prudent approach with this situation
But
and taking advantage of importing oil and gas from Russia with a huge discount.
But isn't that one of the main points for the Belt and Road Initiative, since it's been like to undercut, like instead of relying on the European markets, they are reaching out to the wider world in case of such an event of like war sanctions. So I think it's I don't think that too afraid of the sanctions. Uh,
Hmm.
it's because by now the BRI is already matured to a certain degree. It's not complete, but it's embedded and it's still developing. So it's still yeah. That's why I'm kind of doubting on the thing of the sanctions part. But I do not.
Charles, you're cutting off a little bit.
Oh, sorry. I think it's the browser.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
No, it was lagging a little bit, but it's not a
Mhm.
problem.
oh,
Okay.
okay. Yeah. Sorry. Like yeah. So, because the BRI, um, but one thing that's definitely is that the way things have been going, the next 10, 20 years may be the uh, last okay, okay, maybe the last 10, 20, yeah, sorry. Uh, yeah, it may be the last period where in which like the US still has an upper hand. So it's more like, yeah, it's sorry, I'm failing to formulate the thoughts properly. Yeah, sorry.
It's not a problem.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah. So back to your point, like, but isn't that the purpose of the BRI? And it's already matured to a certain extent. It's not complete. Many of the projects that have been done, they haven't yet earned the investment that they earned the initial investment and stuff. But isn't that the purpose of the BRI? So yeah, sorry. Mhm.
No, I've got your point. In my opinion, the problem is that there is a very interesting book that it's about. It's called The Last Years of American Empire. And they in this book, the writer, I will tell you the name of the author, is talking about this thing that it's called the blowback effect. It's like the main problem, in my opinion, of U.S. foreign policy and politics is that they maintained the control and the basis that was present in the foreign countries before the collapse of the Soviet Union. So, if you check, I was in October in Okinawa. There is still a huge presence of U.S. Military, and it's still one of the biggest bases in the Pacific. But I am trying to show you some images. The problem of all the regional and international power, it's like to have the guarantee to have the resource coming to the countries without any blockade. I can show you the big problem of China in my opinion, but it's like why it's very important Taiwan,
Straight.
the strait, but not for Taiwan itself, because also if tomorrow Taiwan is occupied by China, let's say, the problem is that if they cannot get the acknowledgement about the chip production. So there is the production in Taiwan, but the acknowledgement it's not in Taiwan. But if we can check the actual situation, it's the problem is the oil and gas import, and in the sea we can check that it's this the problem. So we can see from this chart or from this chart that everything is passing to the Strait of Malacca. So it's pretty clear that if I want to break the balls of China, I only have to block the strait, and
the only alternative is what's the northern sea route that passes
the only
past the
alternative
United States.
it will be Russia. So, but
Yeah.
there is Mongolia in between. But
And it's not always navigable.
the other thing that it's very interesting and nobody in the West know the problem, it's in this chart. It's the contended island that it's called Spratly. I don't know if you both ever heard about these Spratly Islands. It's very interesting. Check about it because it's contended by Malaysia, Vietnam, Philippines, China, maybe some other states. Why? Because there is huge fields of oil and natural gas in it. So there is a lot of these small islands, and China built an artificial island and create an airport on it just to declare that it's China. So you can check it. It's very interesting.
I think
So
Wyatt had a video about it.
yeah, but so this is why it's very complicated, because if you check the situation of South China Sea, you can see that you have Taiwan, okay, but if you check like this VC, Taiwan, it's not a problem to the import, because I can go directly to Hong Kong or to Hainan or to the south of China without passing to Taiwan. So the Taiwan Strait, it's not a problem. The problem is that let's say Philippines is a strict US allied. Japan is strictly US allied. And there is also another big problem, that is the still dispute about the Kuril Islands in Japan. When I was in Japan, I asked to my friend that is a professor of let's say that it is a professor in Japan, and I said to him, why is so important for the Russian these Kuril Islands? But there is nothing on it, because if the Japan owned that historically is Japan, so it's occupied during the Second World War. If they owned the Kuril Island, it's impossible for Russia to go out with nuclear submarines from east to USA. So this is why, like, the Quad system was created by the US to, let's say, control as much as possible the expansion of China. So, in my opinion, I think that everything must be a deal about money. It's not about war. So, and the main issue will be economy, because also for the Western countries to have a stable situation, it's much better than a war that it's going too long. If you start from the beginning of the narrative, it's already from 2014, not from 2022. So it's
If
over.
not earlier than that.
So let's see. For anything else, Charles?
Yeah. On like the thing of Quad, like yeah, I understand that India is a very strategic component, but have you been seeing some of the internal developments of the past few, I don't know, like we just recently? Uh, I genuinely think if a war broke out, unless it's directly on their borders, I don't think they'll react, because there's so much happening in the country.
But what do you mean about what is happening inside India, about economically?
Uh, uh, okay, I'm not sure. I'm just saying, like, for instance, like i- from my point of view, and I stress am still unsure. I'm still trying to familiarize myself with what's happening, but like because you get this like I'll just describe it as a political, like culture war of sorts. It's like the way America right now has certain culture war, like it's where, yeah, it's starting to affect certain spheres of the country's geopolitics and politics. The same is happening in India, though I would say that it's kind of much worse and consequential in India, because like, yeah, I think yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry, failing to.
Charles, okay, let me see my position. Then I will ask to also to Islam. Historically, the problem is that India is an US ally, but very next to Russia. And historically, India is more friend to Russia than China. So, because China and Russia were both communist states, but with different type of communist, and an example is KGB was never ever, let's say, able to enter with secret agents in China. I have like one book that I will show to you. Let me show you. It's very, very, very interesting. It's huge book. It's this book. It's The World Was Going Our Way, the KGB and the Battle for the Third World. It's about this Vasily Mitrokin, that was one incredible guy. I don't know if you ever heard about it, Isla. It was like a KGB guy that was copying materials for a lot of years, and there was like this leak. It was like
I
WikiLeaks
heard
of
about it.
SSSR, and it's very interesting because there is one section for any countries, let's say India, China, or whatever, and the situation of India, it's that there was a lot of relationship and interaction between uh, Soviet Union and the Indian government, but not with China. China was like in contrast because technically was a dictatorship. India was a republic, technically the biggest democracy in the world, but the system it's very different from our system. I don't know, Charles, you ever been in India or not?
No, no, not yet.
Okay, let's say that I went both in India and China. There is nothing in common, zero.
Yeah.
So India, it's a place of contrast. For example, in China, I went to many parts. I went to Beijing. I went to Qingdao. I went to the interior parts. China, it's like controlly central. It's completely centralized state
Uh,
with
I would, I would add, not okay. Yes, sometimes it's got that aspects, but then other
now,
times,
Charles,
oh,
what I wanted to say to you is that there is a system that is homogeneous in the cities. It's
okay.
difficult to find many differences in the society. It's like clean cities mean in huge expansion, a lot of cement using a lot of buildings, blah blah blah. The Indian society is a huge skyscraper next to slums. So you have huge contrast in the society that I didn't see in China. So China is trying to develop, let's say, moving the people from the central part to the coast and now to some big cities, but to pick the cities and bring it to pick the people and bring it to the cities with a new social system. Let's say with socialism with Chinese characteristics. In India, it's not like this because you can have, I don't know, super billionaire with super poor invest next to each other. I didn't see something like this in China. And the other
Uh,
thing,
oh,
tell me, Charles.
yeah. Oh, sorry to interrupt. Uh, like on the part for that you said, like moving people to the coastal cities. I don't really think so. Like, because they've been trying to uh, push some people to go towards the west, like is it Xinjiang, those areas, since there are far less people there, to try to develop regions, because the coastal cities have massive over representation, both wealth and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. Sorry for interrupting.
Charles, the data that I had that was impressive for me is that the people that is coming in Shanghai just to be new residents was about 50 people for minutes. So if we can make a small calculation, it's disaster. So why? Because the quality of the life it's much better on the coast in China than in the central part. In India, it's not like this because India it's a federation of states. It's not like China that is a central state. Every state have different language. China they have some different languages, but there is the official Mandarin that is used. In India, there is not official language because the only official language that all the people in India speak it's English. It's not Hindi because Hindi is spoken only by 50% of the Indians. So it's very complicated. It's not comparable. And what I'm not able to understand it's what will happen geopolitically after because Isla, when you told before about what is happening with the BRICS, actually the BRICS economy it's about 24% of the world economy. Only the US it's about 30%. So without Europe.
How much of it is financial economy and how much of it is real manufacturing, resource economy?
How much is defense and military in Russia and oil and gas?
Yeah, fair point.
So it's like how much is production in Russia? Let's say less than 20% or less than 10. The problem is that every state developed their economy in a different way. For example, nobody, it's not very known but by the people in the world that Italy is the sixth biggest weapon exporter in the world. But we are. But it's so one of the biggest weapon company in the world. It's Italian. It's called Leonardo, and it's owned by the state. But it's not our first part of the economy. It's a big part, but it's not the first.
No, what I meant is like the financial aspect versus the real economy, so-called, which is stuff that you manufacture, stuff that you something tangible versus just speculation of the finances, that sort of thing. How do they compare? Would have been interesting to know, honestly, because you said military still contributes to the real economy.
Okay, I can tell you official
It's not
data.
exactly a desirable contributor.
Okay, in US, finance and insurance represents 8.3% of the GDP. So not so big.
Not so much. Okay.
The huge part it's military and defense, oil and gas a lot. IT it's a huge part in US. And you have to think about that the US GDP I think it is about 17 trillion. Let me check, but okay, it's 23 trillion 23 trillion of dollars, and China it's 17. So the big challenge will be between these two guys. So, and what is interesting for me, it's not about BRICS because you have to think that I went many times in Brazil. I will be in Brazil in 30 days. Before I will be in Panama, before in Spain. Brazil, it's not an affordable economy. It's Brazil is very similar to Russia. A lot of ethnicities, unstable, a lot of federal state inside, a lot of diversity. The south is rich and white. Let's say that the south of Brazil it's like Moscow. The north of Brazil it's black and poor. So it's like let's say Caucasus or other part that it's like with lower GDP in Russia. There is a lot of contrast between the people. Either South Africa. South Africa it's not stable country. Um, India, there is a lot of contrast. I think that the big boy is still China because China has a lot of relationship, but with the Western world, and US and China are, let's say, playing like dog and cat, but they are both giving a lot of advantage of this situation.
Yes.
And the sad thing is that you have a lot of young Russian and Ukrainian that are dying for, I don't know, for what.
If I may go back to my comfortable hypotheticals, for China, there is you mentioned it also, that it's an export economy, and economy that doesn't have ready access to natural resources and energies specifically. If we go into hypotheticals, China is one of the global leaders in nuclear energy development. The new nuclear to be slated to be built in the country, and they're actively developing fourth generation nuclear as well. So my thought about it is that if China wants to, as, let's say, it's sort of expected, or there's an opportunity for China to eventually overtake the United States as the richest country in the world. Uh, it's not going to happen within the current energy paradigm, fossil fuel based, because of the lack of access to fossil fuels on China's behalf. And the only alternative to fossil fuels is that is actually functional and not like a pipe dream, like in case of the renewable energy. It's nuclear energy. Basically, you could, if China wanted to aimed towards the future where it is a richer country, more prosperous country than the United States is at its height, is or was at its height, it would have to develop nuclear energy, and through nuclear energy, you can access, for example, well, not for example, but it's key point, process heat. If you rework or develop new nuclear reactor designs, and you can actually manufacture hydrocarbons, fully synthetic hydrocarbons out of basically coal, and out of raw materials like coal or seawater and CO2 dissolved in it. So through that, removing, increasing your ability to access the state of autarky, let's say, for the country, and through that to build a different energy paradigm that would counterbalance the existing fossil fuel based energy paradigm that the United States used to get to where it is right now.
Let me put to both of you one provocation. Okay, this is like the just to in the trade balance. Can you check where this is like the export of China? Can you check where Russia is it and how big is it? Okay, I can tell to you that Russia is 11 billion of export for China. Only US it's 322 billions of export. So, if you let's say that Russia has an export from China that it's less than Italy. So imagine that you sum US and all the Western countries, how much is like the export balance from China to the West, and if you have to choose, let's that we have to be super friends, me and you. With you will be friends. You will be a collapse economy if we cut our ties or no. And the same thing is, check about the import. The import from Russia, with its 59 billion, it's still less of only the US. US it's 156. Germany it's 106. So only Germany and US it's 262 billion dollar, and Russia it's 59. So this is only economical data and nothing that could matter with economical war or whatever. But it's interesting to understand that on the balance there is a lot of money, and at the moment I think that in the long term Russia have less to offer to the Chinese economy. So this is why, because I'm afraid of what is happening, because everybody is taking advantage of this moment without taking care of the real situation of the people.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's just a money numbers game for them. Uh, oh, sorry
Now,
to.
this chart, it's only a graphical representation of what is China's economy in import and export. Just to understand that when I listen or something like, no, there will be a huge alliance between us, we are friends, we stay against the US, and the US it's your first client. And US it's importing 20 times more than Russia from China. So it's difficult to deal with this big bluff, in my opinion. But it's and a different economy. I think it's possible, but
There is
it's
there
difficult.
might be a little bit of a different way of looking at this. I'm gonna go back to my hypotheticals again. Just so comfortable there. Um,
I like your parallel world. So tell me.
parallel universe. Um, let's put it this way. What we're looking at, perhaps, I would say, is the old world versus new world type of dilemma. Um, I agree in a sense with your point about that money is important, or money is the most important thing. I'd argue that it's not exactly money, but the living standards that could be provided by the money. And the on one sort of hand, the what's the word? I forgot. VC. The scales, yes. Uh, there is the living standards, the Western living standards, the championed by the United States, let's put it that way, level of living standards. And on the other hand of the scales, there is perhaps a not yet acquired level of living standards provided not just to the West, to the United States and Europe, but to the rest of the world that is yet to get to the similar level. Uh, and the money and the sort of wealth that exists in that hypothetical, let's say, future, uh, it's incomparable to what we have right now. So if you were a leader of BRICS nations, of any of the countries of the so-called global South, uh, you wouldn't necessarily you would want to strive for that future wealth that you don't have, uh, in spite of the um, resistance that might the existing system provide to that aspiration. So for China, what is more important in the context of what I just said? To Of course, it's going to be a balancing act to appease the United States and the West in the present day, or to lift their people out of poverty, 1.4 billion people, or and to continue to improve their living standards into the future, uh, under a very serious threat of being eaten alive otherwise if they don't deliver.
I have a provocation for you and Charles. I have because okay, this graph is interesting and we can discuss it. Like to just to close our to stay under 1 hour and 40 minutes. So this is the economical growth of China after the agreement and the entrance of World Trade Organization. So the growth of China depends extremely about to be in the World Trade Organization. You can check the data. Before the 2000, the growth of China was very, very, very little. From the 170 and 2000, China was, you can check, it was in the third world countries, not developed, and they started to be developed when they enter in the World Trade Organization and started to export to the world, not to the West, to all the world. So, if you were saying that Chinese increasement of quality of life is depending and by exiting in this old world system.
No, it's just sorry, I interrupted you. Please continue. Well,
No,
I'll
no, it's
answer it.
it's it's only but the actual growing of social welfare and GDP per capita of China, it's completely connected to the entrance of China in the world trade economy because before it
it
was not developed.
it's not China that needs to not exit necessarily, but to sort of with I, how do I put it?
To put a different,
The
let's
current
say, world
situation
order.
is a situation of growing tension. There needs to be some release to the growing tension. It's in every system you want to. Every system trends towards lower energy state. I don't know what that means. Never mind. The point is, there is currently there needs to be a release to the built up tension between between the East and the West, between China, uh, Russia, and the United States. And we could argue who is the cause of that tension. Specifically, in my opinion, it's the United States. and and the way they conduct their foreign policy. The only way China doesn't want to leave the World Trade Organization. China doesn't want to become a pariah state. China doesn't want to go into some kind of uh, reclusive isolation, perhaps with Russia, perhaps without Russia. Nobody wants that. And the rest of the world doesn't want that either. The only actor on the world stage that creates a problem, that builds tension, is the United States. And the only reason they are doing that is because their objective is to maintain their hegemony. If United States stops behaving the way it does, the world will stabilize eventually, and a new sort of balance of powers will emerge. The problem is not solved by China leaving World Trade Organization. The problem is solved by the United States stopping stopping the way they've been conducting their foreign policy.
But it's very difficult because
And it's an easier problem to solve.
I don't know.
You don't have to stop trade with the United States. You don't have to even stop using dollar entirely. You just have to find a way to change policy on part of the United States somehow. I don't know how. We'll see how it goes.
Like
it could be probably a reform of United Nations system, but also Nation and all these international organizations are very ineffective. So this is why I'm saying to you that probably the deal that it's more effective, it's economical and not in foreign policy. Chinese are using a lot of soft power, not a big military approach. You except for Tibet, you never heard about any type of war made directly by China, but they are using a lot of soft power in Africa, a lot of soft power, for example, in Sri Lanka. Let's see. The problem it's that everybody is talking about the US as a degrading economy, an empire in crisis, whatever, but GDP is growing every year. The problem, in my opinion, is that with the actual economic situation, a big and increasing war situation in Ukraine will be disruptive for the Eastern economies, because the Western economies will have a lot of problems in the new agreements with the Middle East, because there will change a lot of, let's say, balance between the power of Southern Europe and Northern Africa. But the big problem is that China, without the buyers, cannot sell the product to BRICS. You got what I'm saying? It's like, let's say that we will do a new value and we make two different type of economies: Western countries that are buyers and the consumers, and the BRICS that are mainly producers of materials, of goods or energy and raw materials, like Russia. If you don't have buyers, what will be of the economy of the BRICS? It's not sustainable. So I think that it's better to to create the international situation for a deal instead of making a war, a cold war, call it what you said, like hot war, like in Ukraine, for results that nobody knows what will be. What will be the results of a war in Ukraine? Let's say that Russia win. What will happen? Economically disaster, probably. If Ukraine will win, what will happen?
Same thing.
Instability in the Eastern Front. So with a calculation of a lot of death at the end of this war of young people. I don't know, but it's difficult to make it.
Numbers I heard 300,000 dead. That's insane.
And not to forget the mass immigrations. Like you literally have millions of people that will probably never return.
Why would they return?
So yeah, let's say that we already did 1 hour 40 minutes as we planned. Thank you for your time, and
Thank you for the stream.
let's try to remake it maybe with a big let's say advance. Probably the week of the 8th of May. So for the people that is watching us not in live, if you have any question for us or for the roundtables for the next speakers, just put it in the comments. And also if you have any arguments that you want to listen from us, we will talk it in the next 2 weeks. So thanks to everybody. Good morning to Charles. Good night to
Good night.
42. And see you soon. Ciao.
Okay.